Hi there. I'm so excited to welcome you to the Arthritis Life podcast, where we share arthritis life stories and tips for thriving with autoimmune arthritis. My name is Cheryl Crow, and I am passionate about helping people navigate real life with arthritis beyond joint pain. I've been living with rheumatoid arthritis for 20 years, and I'm also a mom, occupational therapist, video creator, support group leader, and I created the Room to Thrive self-management program. I am so excited to help you live a more empowered life with arthritis. We're going to cover everything from kitchen life hacks to navigating the healthcare system to coping with friends who just don't get it. Seriously, no topic is going to be off limits on this podcast. My interviewees and I share our honest stories of how chronic illness affects our lives. This includes discussions about mental health, sex, shame, pregnancy, body image, advocacy, self-acceptance, and so much more. You'll hear stories from all ends of the spectrum, from a person who's living in medicated remission from psoriatic arthritis to somebody living with severe mobility restrictions and severe pain from rheumatoid arthritis. You'll hear how people manage their conditions in different ways, like medications, mindfulness, movement, social support, work accommodations, and so much more. You'll also hear from rheumatology experts who just get it. We'll dive deep into the science behind chronic pain and what's the latest evidence for lifestyle changes that can help you thrive with arthritis, including exercise, sleep, nutrition, stress reduction, and more. This is your chance to sit down and chat with a friend who's been there. Ready to figure out how to manage your arthritis life? Let's get started. I'm so excited to have Dawn on the Arthritis Life podcast today. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to get started, could you let the audience know where do you live and what is your relationship to arthritis?
So I live in Anchorage, Alaska, and I've been diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis and generalized pustular psoriasis, which goes with it. So I get a lot of the blisters and things like that on my hands and my feet.
Okay, wow. And I would love to know more about, what was your diagnosis experience? How old were you or around? How old were you? And was it easy or was it hard to get your diagnosis?
So looking back, I would say that somewhere around the age of 30, I had what I know today as dactylitis, where all of a sudden the first part of my pointer finger on my right hand just got huge and swollen and red for no reason. And I did go to a doctor and they said, "Oh, it's probably gout," and gave me some anti-inflammatories. Moving through the years, I would randomly have times where I was completely exhausted and lots of body this malaise, just really like that. But I had two boys 1 year apart that kept me very, very busy. I was a stay-at-home mom for 13 years. So there were times, definitely looking back, that I knew something was going on, but didn't quite know what it was. I didn't really, I would raise it maybe to a provider, but it was pretty much dismissed. I've had two hip replacements. After, let's see, what age was I? About probably 35. They did find some issues with my back, but they said, really, it's not your back, it's your hips. So definitely a lot of little things here and there. Looking back at lab work, I had anti-inflammatory or inflammatory labs that were elevated, but I am an Energizer bunny by nature. And so I've been dismissed a lot as, oh, well, she just does it.
Oh, wow. I think it's such a double-edged sword. Sometimes when you push through the fatigue, when you're able to keep
Yeah.
functioning, it's almost like you get punished for that. Cause I'll say, well, if it was really bad, I remember a doctor said that to me once. I don't think I've ever even shared that in the podcast that she said, well, if it was really bad, you wouldn't be able to keep going to school. And I'm like, well,
Yeah.
okay. I thought I should be rewarded for still persevering, right?
So the end of my diagnosis happened in May of 2023.
Wow, so it was a long time till you
A
got this.
long time.
Yeah.
Yes. So I got pneumonia really bad. I was very, very ill. And that seemed to have triggered the big, okay, this is what's happening. The psoriasis, my anti-inflammatory, or excuse me, I say that inflammatory results in my labs were sky high. My CRP and my sed rate were sky high. My blood counts, a lot of things were so off that they actually sent it for a pathological review saying what's going on with this patient. But that triggered the psoriasis part. So I had little plaque spots here and there, but I live in Alaska. It's cold and it's dry. So you could get these little rashes here and there. But that triggered a very huge, no, something more is going on. So my primary care provider referred me to rheumatology in August of 23, but they let me know because it's very difficult to find a rheumatologist here. In August, they let me know that they wouldn't be able to see me till May of 2024. That was the soonest I could be seen. But thankfully, they contacted me in November. So going back to November 2023, I was able to get in, and thankfully it's a PA in the rheumatology clinic here. First thing she said is, so she looked at me just physically and said, "Oh, you really look like you don't feel good." And I said, "I really don't. That's the truth." And then she said, "Let me see your hands." And she looked at, and I want to look at your nails. Kind of nail changes have you noticed? I said, "Oh, definitely. I had pitting nails, fingers were turning, things like that." And then she wanted to look at my skin. And sure enough, these spots that people would say to me, "Oh, your arm is so red, your elbow." And sure enough, she said right away, "I am fairly confident because as you're aware, it's not diagnosed in blood work other than the inflammation. It's a site. It's what's going on, with your symptom." The other thing that was happening, because what I know is if I stay down, so if I lay down and chill out, I'm far worse than if I get up and I move. And so I told myself, for whatever reason in my brain, I knew I had to get exercise. So I would do water aerobics, but I added a personal trainer 2 days a week. And another thing that was a huge thing that was happening that I had gone into ortho for is that my bicep muscle would swell so much that I called it a Popeye arm. I couldn't even straighten it. Well, turns out that the psoriatic arthritis can inflame tendons and ligaments.
Yeah, I see that you're showing a key difference between like rheumatoid arthritis, what I have, and
Mm.
psoriatic arthritis, what you have is, I mean, there's always overlap, like the Venn diagrams can overlap, but typically RA swells from the very inside of the joint outward versus
Mhm.
the tendons and ligaments getting involved. So I'm
Right.
so sorry you had that. That must have felt so
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
It was crazy. I was like, I should be moving, but then this is what happens. And so since I started my different treatments, yes, obviously I'm sore. Yes, I swell some, but nothing like that at all.
And this is sorry, this is just the OT in me. When you were 35 and you got hip replacements, what did they say was the reason for that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I had a congenital hip
Oh,
dysplasia on
oh,
one
okay.
side, which is kind of funny to me because I did every sport you could imagine. And it was, everything. If I would have knee issues, it was always dismissed. "Oh, you're fine." They never did x-rays until I complained about my back. They said, "Oh my gosh, look at this. How did you not know this?"
You're actually, strangely enough, you are actually the second person on this podcast who's had double hip replacements from congenital hip dysplasia, Carrie, on episode 147. And similar thing to you, not only did she have double hip replacements in her case, really, really early 40s, but she also had it done after having 2 kids.
Yeah, that I did too.
Which in my
Yeah.
mind, I think, wouldn't that have come up? Wouldn't that have somehow come up? It can be instructive to look at those cases and say, did nobody take the time, like in your case, to start putting these puzzle pieces together? I'm just glad that you got eventually the accurate diagnosis.
Oh, yeah. Me too.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, and you alluded to treatments. I would also love to hear what have been some of the highlights or lowlights of your treatment journey.
So since it's been since November of 2023 where I started, I would definitely say the medication journey is my low light. The highlight in there is sometimes finding something that definitely I can say works. Is it okay to say the medications I've done?
Yes, because people
Always.
always want to know when they're not
Yeah.
prescriptive, they want to just know a human being who's tried it. So
Yeah.
go ahead. Yeah.
So I started with methotrexate. I think that's the golden stamp one. Methotrexate, and then added Humira, and then did Hyrimoz, and I actually had a huge reaction to Humira and Hyrimoz, where that's when I got the filler. It brought that out. And as you're aware, sometimes that can happen.
Yeah, it's one of the rare side effects, but it's really devastating.
Yeah. Oh, it was bad. And fortunately, I didn't get it on my face, or, it was moving on in my arms and stuff. Then we switched off of that and went on leflunomide, and then added Rinvoq. So I'm off of everything now except Rinvoq, but I'm going to transition to Cosentyx because the Rinvoq helped, but my provider wants to go to Cosentyx to make sure to keep the pustular part at bay because it keeps reoccurring.
Oh, okay. Okay. So yeah, and is it working at least to control some of the disease activity? Like the current, or is it's hard to know, right? I always say,
Yeah,
I don't know how bad it would be if I was unmedicated.
for sure. And that's where I'm at. I have to ask myself sometimes, what's worse, the disease or the medication? But I will tell you that even though, as you're aware, you still feel extra tired at times, you hurt, you feel swollen, the fact that I can actually get out of bed and walk down my stairs in the morning without feeling like a robot because I hurt so bad, that's the big difference.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I've been really lucky to not have really any major side effects of the medications so for my body, it's been a no-brainer. Like, I have to have them because even if I have to take a 1-week holiday of my medication for like vaccinations and stuff, I start feeling it. But I think that you're right. The equation is different when you have side effects, then you're really having to weigh that pros and cons.
Of course, you insert prednisone along the way. And thankfully, I haven't needed it for a little bit. When I had my first massive flare of the pustules, they didn't want to use it because of the rebound effect. But then it just was so bad that they said, we're going to have to take the chance. And thankfully, within 3 to 4 days, it really tempered down those blisters.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds so painful. And, I think for anyone listening who might be newly diagnosed, just know that it is common to have to pivot a little bit in your medication plan. I know people who they started on methotrexate and they are still on it 5, 10, 15 years later, and that's their only medicine. Other people like you and I and a lot of people on the podcast, I've had more winding journeys. Like, well, and one of the things before I have anyone on the podcast, I always like to ask, what are you the most passionate about sharing with a patient audience of other people who are living with this condition. One of the things was the importance of advocating for yourself, which I still find hard to this day at times. So how I'd love to hear more about, how have you learned the lesson of the importance of advocacy? If you have ever felt completely lost or utterly alone while trying to navigate real life with rheumatic disease, listen up. I am here for you. I created an educational program to help you go from overwhelmed to confident, supported, and connected in a matter of weeks. And it's called Room to Thrive. After earning a master's in occupational therapy and completing hundreds of hours of additional training, I created a step-by-step guide to help you truly thrive with rheumatic disease. This is the only program I know of that's designed to improve quality of life for people living with inflammatory, autoimmune forms of arthritis, like rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis, non-radiographic axial spondyloarthritis, Sjogren's disease, and more. During the self-paced lessons, you'll learn how to manage pain and fatigue, cope with stress, navigate relationships, and continue doing the things that matter to you and bring you joy. The goal is really to help you improve your quality of life and learn how to thrive with your rheumatic disease right now, rather than waiting for a distant day when it might be cured or healed. I really created the down-to-earth, practical, heartfelt resource I wish I had had when I was first diagnosed at age 20. If you want even more in-depth support, you can join the 12-week Room to Thrive virtual support group, where you'll be surrounded by people who actually get what you're going through, people who will provide the encouragement, validation, and support that you deserve. Each group is expertly moderated, so you don't have to worry about the kind of misinformation that spreads like wildfire in the free-for-all social media groups. If you're on the fence, don't just take my word for it. Here's what Katie had to say in March 2023. I was lost and overwhelmed with my RA diagnosis. It felt overwhelming to know what to read, what to do, how to spend my energy trying to research on the internet. Room to Thrive did that for me. It's been like getting a crash course in my diagnosis along with a community who gets it. To see all the details, including the dates for the next support groups, go to the link in the show notes or bit.ly/thrive room with a capital T and capital R. You can also just email me anytime at info@myarthritislife.net. And don't delay if you're interested, because each group is capped at 16 people or less in order to make a small, intimate group atmosphere. Thanks so much for your time, and I can't wait to get started with the next groups. And I can't wait for those of you who are interested in the self-paced option to go ahead and join that at any time. Bye-bye for now.
Well, I guess at this point, it's the look back piece of, wow, I probably should have spoke up more. And I really stand by the people have no idea. Like, they look at me and they see me as this go-go person who can do all of these things. When the truth is, there's miserable times behind that. And so I think probably looking back, I wish I would have spoke up more. I think, though, that unfortunately we get labeled as, oh, they're just, making things up or wanting attention. And because I work in the medical field, and even though when it all started, I was not in the medical field. And I was home for 13 years. So I didn't start back to work until 20 years ago. So I have been in the medical field that long, and it's a stereotype. And so I think if I could say anything to anybody is if your spidey senses are telling you and you're having all these different things, definitely speak up.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And it's a very strange, kind of bittersweet experience to have health provider experience when you've also been a chronic illness patient, because you unfortunately get to see some of those things you mentioned, like stereotypes that providers might have. Can you share just really quick for context, what is your job?
Oh, I work in a laboratory. I'm a
Okay.
pre-analytical supervisor. I am a supervisor of the phlebotomy team. So we take care of the inpatient world, emergency department, and then myself and my team have to get everything ready for testing. So that could be tissue, anything that comes out of the body.
And I think so, yeah, looking back, I would 100% agree with you in my journey too. I wish I had spoken up more. I think as a woman, sometimes also it can be you feel like, oh, I don't want to just seem like I'm just whining. Or I remember thinking that, after having my son, luckily I'd already had my diagnosis, but I found it very confusing. I don't know if this is the same for you after having your two kids, but not knowing, well, I've never had a kid before. So is my body feeling this way?
Right.
Because that's when
Yeah.
everyone feels crappy postpartum.
Totally.
But
Totally.
yeah,
Yeah, totally.
you don't know,
Well,
right?
and then I ended up with gastroparesis in 2007 or so. And again, dismissed, totally dismissed. Couldn't eat, the whole thing. So sick, nauseated. I referred my own self to Virginia Mason. I wrote my own letter and I got my own results at that time and I sent them to them. And they looked, I guess they sit as a panel every month or something. And one of the providers there said, yes, we can help this person. We're pretty sure what's wrong. And I lost like 40 pounds or something. So I ended up down there and they said, yes, it's gastroparesis and here's your options. So I've also been battling that often, gone through those different treatments. So
Yeah. What gave you the courage, do you think, to advocate that way? I got diagnosed with gastroparesis also the same year or a year before I got diagnosed with RA, but I didn't even know what it was. So I wouldn't even
no,
know. I just knew
right.
something was wrong with my stomach. I thought I
Totally.
had stomach cancer. But
Yeah.
yeah, you just knew you just knew that conviction deep down, something's wrong. Someone needs to help me.
Yeah. Right. Here you are trying to, at that time, my kids were in high school and I was working then. And you're just so sick. Like, you know, you
Yeah.
have it. You are so nauseated, you can't eat, and you're losing weight. And the gastro doctors are saying, "Well, you've got to eat." It's like, yeah. So anyway, I just finally decided, you know what? I don't know. I just said something has to change. And then I did that myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's such a great testament. There's probably someone listening right now who's going through something similar where they're just like, I can't wait any longer for someone else to figure it out. I have to take charge. And unfortunately, that is how our healthcare system works a lot of times. And if you don't know, I realize I always try to define terms, medical terms of gastroparesis, like officially in terms of the root of the word is like stomach or gastrointestinal system paralysis. Right? But it doesn't have to mean complete paralysis. It just another word for it is delayed gastric emptying.
Yeah.
So, like in my case, when I did a gastric emptying scan in 2002, it showed my stomach empties 5 times slower than a normal person's. So it just means that you get full easily, not just, it means that you get full easily and the food doesn't move along the tract very fast. And so it leads to, like you mentioned, nausea, just feeling crummy and even malabsorption issues sometimes.
Right.
So that's the test for that is a gastric emptying scan. And also I'll put a link in the show notes to what gastroparesis is. And also gastroparesis falls under the umbrella of dysautonomia or disorders of the autonomic nervous system. And so people with RA, I did not know this until a decade after my diagnosis. People with rheumatoid arthritis, psoriatic, other inflammatory forms of arthritis are more likely to have dysautonomia as well. So it's something to add to your list of, oh, I'm not just being paranoid, like maybe there's actually something else going on. Do you
Yep.
take any treatment for your gastroparesis or just lifestyle?
Not now. I did use Reglan, and of course, that medication is not looked upon. So I just know how to control it by the way I eat and making sure I eat the right food so that I don't get constipated.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have a whole system.
Yeah. Me too. Yeah. It involves
Yeah.
magnesium.
Uh huh.
My friend
Totally.
magnesium.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
It's a really tough one. Again, my heart goes out to anyone who's had to deal with that. There's something that makes you appreciate your autonomic nervous system more than having a dysfunction in it. You're like, wait, my body used to just do all this stuff.
Mhm.
Like I look at people who can just eat whatever they want and be like, do you know how lucky you are? Do you ever do that?
Uh huh.
I was like, what's it like? But
Right.
also someone else is looking at me. There's so many things I still can do because I'm mobile and I'm,
Exactly.
yeah. So there's always important to remember, so many things that we could be anyway, grateful for as well. The other thing I know that you were hoping to chat about and share with the audience today is like the role you mentioned earlier, aqua exercise, water aerobics, and just in general, what role exercise has played in your toolbox for managing your condition. So I would love to hear more about exercise and also just self-care in general.
So it is huge. It is a huge part of my life that I learned with. It's kind of like I unknowingly knew that I had to be doing this. And I have so many things that I'm thankful for because I do patient care. I see really, people that are so much worse off than me. So I feel very fortunate every single day that I'm able to do this. And so it has helped me stay strong mentally. I learned through personal situations, a brother passing away, having to put a mother in hospice care all around the same time. I realized that what it did was, especially the training that I do, the personal training, it's only 30 minutes, 2 times a week, but it really pushes my brain to a level that, yes, you can do that when you think. When I watch my trainer show, like, say, this is what we're doing, and I think, are you serious? But it pushes me. I have added people who train with me now, and I have also learned that they can do things more reps than me or more this or that. And that's okay. I'm okay with that because the fact that I'm doing it is just the goal. And then with the water, it just speaks for itself. I will never not be in the water. It's salt water. It feels great. Example, yesterday I had a workout. This morning I was able to get into the pool. I also got a dog a year ago, a puppy that makes me get out and walk even in the wintertime. So it is just huge. But I want to also add that I give myself a day of rest. And so with my job and everything I do to stay active, I recognize that I need a day to just relax and not be going and all of that. So that's also very key for me. As far as other things I do, I'm not outwardly a church going person or a spiritual person, but at the same time, I do make sure that I do prayers every single morning. And so the intent for me is just taking a pause, making that, whether you have quiet time or yoga or whatever you do. I also start my day by stretching. I've learned that again, it takes me 5 or 10 minutes, but I have to do that to get myself moving. So I think that covers my little platform of what's important and what works for me. And again, I understand at the same time. So if somebody said I can't do that because I would be compassionate and understand that. But I would also try to encourage them to move in some manner. I realize that again, I worked out with people that they're very more active and stronger, but I do what I can.
Yeah, I think that's so, so important. I mean, we at the time this comes out, people will have heard a story from Riley who talked about how, sometimes it is hard if you're on social media a lot, which I know you're not. Good job having boundaries. But she was saying that, it's hard sometimes seeing people with the same diagnosis she has who are like able to run a marathon and do stuff when she has a hard time getting to the mailbox.
Mhm.
And we talked about how, but we should celebrate the wins are always relative to what your body can do. So if it's hard for
Yeah.
you to get to the mailbox and you went to the mailbox twice in one day when normally you do it once in one day, that's huge.
And
Celebrate that. Don't compare our bodies are just different, even if we have the same diagnosis, right?
yes.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, sorry, when you said salt water, is that like an indoor saltwater pool?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
it is. An indoor, yeah.
I just had this imagining of you jumping off of like a glacier in Alaska.
I wish. I definitely I love the water. So I paddleboard. I do that in the lakes here in the summer, and they're cold. They are definitely cold. And
Yeah.
cold does affect me. This is a hard place to live. We have a lot of weather happening all the time. We have huge mountains in the backyard. We have an ocean, we have everything. Yeah. But I definitely can tell you that I was just in Hawaii a few
Oh,
weeks ago, and my body and my skin really loved it. So,
my eyes really love
yeah.
Hawaii. It's the humidity really helps with dry eyes. I don't know if do you have dry eyes with your psoriatic arthritis or no?
I not so much dry eyes. I definitely have, again, you can
Skin.
never skin and my mouth, half of my mouth is dry. Yeah,
Mhm.
I
Interesting. Yeah.
know.
Well, sorry, I got us off on Hawaii.
Yeah.
On Hawaii and water exercise. But yeah, I
Yeah,
think whatever I always say to people that what's the best exercise for arthritis? What's the best exercise for arthritis? I'm like, the best exercise is the one that you're gonna do.
exactly. 100%.
Yeah, and it's the one that you enjoy, there's this for rheumatoid arthritis, they call it the gel phenomenon, which is where the synovial fluid in your joints, if you're inactive for a long
Mhm.
period of time, even just for sleeping, 8 or 10.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah.
I think it is, and if people are listening who are just struggling to find that perfect balance between activity and rest, I feel you because I think that that's something that I to this day still struggle with. There's times when I feel like, okay, I'm staying in my zone of I can push myself within this zone, and if I go outside of it, I know I'm going to be fatigued just because of my sense of my body at this point. Sometimes
Mhm.
I think I've stayed in that just right ideal zone, and then I still feel bad afterwards. Do you ever have those times too?
Oh, and thank you for bringing up sleep. Sleep is
Oh,
a
yeah.
huge issue, and that's been chronic for me and goes with the pain that will wake me up. I'm horrible, horrible at sleeping, and it is number 1 on the list of what's important for you, what benefits you the most is
Mhm.
sleep, and I do. I try every which way. Maybe someday I'll be better at it, but it's a huge problem.
Well, I think sleep is one of the interesting lifestyle variables where, there's the big three people tend to think of with lifestyle are nutrition, exercise, sleep.
Eh,
The fourth one being, mental health, stress
yeah.
management. Sometimes it's kind of falls in what it depends on how you put things into what buckets in terms of like your non pharmaceutical interventions. But sleep is one where I have to remind myself, what can I control? I can control
Eh,
my behaviors before bed, like how much I'm on my phone.
yeah.
I'll leave it to your imagination to guess how much more than I should be I'm on my phone. And then, my sleep environment, like to some degree, I can control the heat. I can control the type of, bedding I have. I can control whether I let my little doggy in the bed. There he is.
Oh,
This is my day bed, my office bed. I don't
oh,
have beds
you have
everywhere.
a cavalier. Oh,
Yes, he's the sweetest.
yes.
They're so sweet. And then
Mhm,
but I can't control of physiologically with my brain's going to go into sleep mode. That's up to
mhm.
my brain, and I think that can be what's so frustrating is you like, I know sleep is important. I'm trying to sleep, but you can't
Yeah,
make
yeah.
yourself sleep. Yeah, right.
Sleep and I thank you for bringing up nutrition. And
Mhm.
so I know for me, staying away from sugar is huge.
Mhm.
Sugar and trying to get, basically the Mediterranean diet for me is the best. So I try really hard to s- to
Yeah.
to stay on that. And then fluids. Oh,
Mhm.
and that's something else with the gastroparesis. You
Mhm.
ask me and tell me that I need this much water. The thought of it totally makes me wanna throw up. So,
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah.
yeah.
That's a really good point. I just think so many people when they're newly diagnosed are just like, where do I even start? So, it's taken time, right, for you to that trial and error, figuring out what is your trigger food. Yours might sounds like is sugar. Some other people do okay with sugar, but then they have a hard time with like dairy or red meat. Other people, it's a little bit customized. There are some general recommendations like the Mediterranean style eating pattern. The other thing I wanted to ask is, it sounds like exercise and your kind of daily management toolbox helps you cope. But is there anything else that's helped you cope with all these ups and downs? And it sounds like a pretty demanding job and having kids and just what helps you cope?
I think I just, for whatever reason, I have learned to be so strong in my brain mentally. I feel very fortunate. And I think a lot of it has to do with what I see every day. And I just feel very fortunate. No matter what, how I feel, I feel like I'm the luckiest person just because I'm able to get up, put my feet on the floor, and do what I do. So I don't know how or why I got this really strong brain that I have, but that's something that I feel very fortunate about.
No, I think, well, to me, what you're demonstrating is gratitude.
I
And
am.
all of the mental wellness people will say gratitude practice can be so powerful. And I think that's beautiful. I mean, that you just kind of learn that on your own. Yeah.
Maybe having kids and help me to go through the process, and they're 34 and 35 now. So raising them and just going through all the trials and tribulations that uh, I'm not sure how. I mean, I can take so much in my backpack, I call it, where you just throw everything in there and carry it. Every once in a while, it's everyone's gonna have their day. Everyone's gonna have their moment where I become emotionally unintelligent. But I supervise up to 30 people and, have grandkids and all of the personal things that happen. A husband of 39 years,
Uh-huh.
all of it. And I think for now, probably for me, because the kids are gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I have my own time at the end, when I get off work. I try to take just those moments. Uh,
Mhm.
and no matter what, I'm very thankful every day. We never know what tomorrow's going to bring. So I think what I see every day and know about what's happening, it's true. So yeah, nothing's perfect. It is not going to be, but be thankful for what you can do and what you do have and don't have every day.
Yeah. That's absolutely beautiful. It really is just basic perspective taking, but it's really easier said than done. Like,
It is.
we all know we should, be grateful for the little things, but I think having accountability partners is is golden because I don't know if your husband is that for you or, or maybe your own self, but that for me has been really helpful. I think my mom especially and my husband are good at reminding me of, okay, well, you have you still have, remember to look at what you still have when something's been hard.
I do, if I'm doing morning round collections with my team,
Yeah.
I purposely come in about 20 minutes early and get started ahead of them because they've actually said, you're just too much in the morning.
This is definitely something that would happen to me. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I tell them, no, that's how I got my name. That's when I'm at my best. You know,
Yeah. At the dawn,
that's when I was born. Let's go.
well, a lot of people say that, that mornings are hard for them with arthritis and inflammatory arthritis. But I've always, and I definitely feel the morning stiffness at times and morning soreness, but my energy is still better
Oh,
in the
yeah,
mornings.
for sure. I'm way better. I'm far more, that's just me,
Yeah.
exhausted. And yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, just for sake of time, first of all, I'm so grateful for you for doing this during your work day, which I know you're very, very busy. So on to our kind of, they're rapid fire questions that, as you know,
You bet.
you've listened to the podcast, you know that sometimes they're not so fast. But what are some of your best words of wisdom for someone listening who might be newly diagnosed?
So my words of wisdom are to keep a drama-free zone. Keep keep your life as simple as you can, as simple as possible, and again, stay positive. So to your point about, I have no social media. I never have. A lot of it is because I try to have a private life and keep my work life very separated. And it's just not something I've ever done. But just honestly, keep your life as simple as you can and as drama free. me. I have a lot going on in my personal life with my kids, grandkids, and all of that, but save the drama. I'm just not there. So keep your life simple.
My mom started saying this phrase, and I know she listens to the podcast, so hi mom, but that, reminding herself, like, not my circus, not my monkeys.
Totally.
Myself on that, because I have a hard time with self-regulating when I like my husband likes to make a joke about, I can't go to bed yet. Someone's wrong on the internet. Nope. Not like, I'm not gonna, even if I never slept or winked the rest of my life, I'll never be able to correct all the misinformation out there.
Oh, no.
Do what you
No.
can.
For sure.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Do you have a favorite quote or inspirational saying for tough days?
So this is just goofy. If I have to work very early, so get up at 3 a.m, it's time to make the donuts. So I gotta get up. I gotta just go. So that's one of them. That's
I love
just
that.
goofy and silly if you know whatever the donut shop, the little guy. Anyway.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember what that was. Yeah.
Oh gosh, Dunkin' Donuts, is that what it was?
Probably. Yeah.
Okay. And then the old make lemonade out of your lemons, Joe. Yep, it's gonna be a terrible. And I have a situation with kids who played competitive hockey, and
Oh boy.
if we not get this team or that team, I'd say, pull those bootstraps up, hook them on tight, and just move forward. Again, what can you control?
Yeah. I feel like that's another undercurrent of your mental strength. This is my armchair. My armchair assessment is that sounds like you have a really good sense of what is in your locus of control, what is not, and you're not spending a lot of time stressing out the things out of your control. And that's
No.
that's wisdom. That's wisdom, right? That's the serenity prayer, right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Do you have, it's okay if you don't, a favorite arthritis gadget or tool in your toolbox?
I would say not off the top of my head, although I do have, like stretch bands.
Oh yeah. Excellent.
Yeah. So I guess that would be one. That's how I start my morning. I completely stretch. I have learned that my hot spots are upper back or lower upper back. I'm sorry, between the shoulder blades.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, if I'm going to have a flare, that's where it shows up in my shoulder and stuff. But if I do those bands, so I literally pull it tight across my waist and whip my arms behind my back and do that, and then do just a quick stretching and use that band, that I would say that there's that.
They're so helpful. I always think of those exercise bands because I use them with strength training. You're so right that they could be useful for stretching, not just strength training. So
stretching, strength training, and then I have a Theragun. So for tightness, that works great if you're going to talk about tools. But yeah,
I feel like if those who don't know, it's not a gun. It's
no. Yeah.
Hold a Theragun. Like
massage gun. Yeah.
Massage gun. No, I know what you're talking about, but I just I'm always trying to imagine someone listening who's, what are we talking about?
I know. All right.
Because when I'm listening to certain podcasts, I'm like, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite book or movie or show you've been watching or reading lately?
I do. I love sports. I'm a complete sports junkie.
Oh, yeah.
And so my favorite movie was Remember the Titans. I love Denzel Washington. I think he's a great actor. I love the message behind that.
So good. Oh, nothing like, I'm a soccer player, by life. I don't play currently, but nothing like a good sports movie. What is it? Last one. What does it mean to you to live a good life and thrive with psoriatic arthritis?
Like I said, I've had to tell myself, just being able to not necessarily keep up with the others that I'm working out with, but just doing it, do the best that I can do. And then sharing my story when it's applicable, and just being this person. And then when they do find out, oh, wow, you have that, but you are able to do all this. And that's, I guess, in a nutshell. And I am also thankful for my provider, who helps me. She's very good if I make a call and say this or that, so I would say she helps me thrive, and my family.
I wonder how many rheumatologists, do you have a lot of choices of rheumatologists in Anchorage, or is there just a handful?
It's a handful.
Yeah.
It's improved. So
Okay.
it was next to nothing, and it has improved. So there's a clinic, in the one that I go to, there's probably 4 or 5 Ds and then the PAs below them.
Mm.
And I have seen the MD but I really connected with this PA, and to have her look at me without anything else and just saying, "Oh, you just don't look like you feel good," you know? Wow. And so when you did have a question somewhere in there, like, how did you feel when you were diagnosed?
Oh,
How
yeah.
were you emotional? I was not. I was not emotional whatsoever. I was just like, thankfully, I'm gonna feel better. And because I felt I was hurting so bad, I was so exhausted. uh, I was just like, it didn't matter. Finally, someone's got to it. And when I got later, when I ended up with the pustular
Mm.
outbreak, I just finally looked at her and said, well, I guess you got the diagnosis right, didn't you?
Yeah. I I feel similar that it can be a very relieving experience,
Mhm.
diagnosis.
Yeah.
It can be, the emotion can be happy or relieved or hopeful. It doesn't
Yeah.
sad or upset, but it's all of those are valid, especially when you've been suffering without knowing why, and then someone tells you why. Oh, and that there's treatments for this. Okay, let's go.
Let's go is right.
Yeah, but that's how I was too. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. This has been so
Welcome.
great. Yeah. Was there anything else you wanted to share with the audience? I feel like we got to most of it, but just in case.
No, I think I covered it all. I do understand that there's folks out there that cannot move maybe to the level that I do and all those things. So I don't want to come across as, like I'm an arrogant person here. You know what I mean? I'm very compassionate, and I do understand.
Oh my gosh. No, I think you came across great in my opinion. You never know how people are going to respond. That is one thing I've learned through being on social media that you never know how people are going to take what you shared, but your intent is clearly to, share your story and help others paint a picture in their mind of what life could look like for them. If someone's on day 1 or day 7 of their,
All right.
diagnosis.
Mhm.
So, and you're holding down, sounds like a full-time job for many years and being able to balance being a mom and, doing your exercises and all your activities with that job. And so I think that's a big question a lot of
Yeah.
people have in their head too. So yeah. So thank you so much for taking
Thank
the
you.
time. And if she's not on social media, like we said, so normally I say, oh, follow up with, my guest on Instagram or whatever. But if you have a burning question for Dawn, I guess you could contact me and then I could filter to her if she.
Sounds good. I would be open to whatever. Yes, totally.
Awesome. All right. Well,
Nothing against social media. I want to say
oh
that.
yeah. Oh
Nothing
yeah.
against it.
No.
It's just personal choice. That's all.
No, and it's how the majority of people find out about this podcast. I don't do any currently like external
Mhm.
marketing or anything. So I definitely need social media for
Yeah.
getting the word out about my work and everything. So,
Yes.
but thank you so much for your
Yeah.
time and we'll talk to you later. Bye bye for now.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening. This podcast is supported by Room to Thrive, an educational program I created to help empower you to live life to the fullest with rheumatic disease. In the program, you're going to learn evidence-based tools for managing all the ways rheumatic disease affects your life. And my goal is to help you go from overwhelmed to confident, supported, and connected in a matter of weeks. You can go through the pre-recorded modules on your own in the self-paced course, or you can take the course along with a robust support group. of new arthritis friends to support you and cheerlead you along the way. Learn more in the link in my show notes, or you can always go to www.myarthritislife.net. And if you like this podcast, I'd be so honored if you took the time to rate and review it. I also encourage you to share it with anyone you know who might benefit from it. I also want to remind you that you can find full transcripts, videos, and detailed show notes with hyperlinks for each episode on the Arthritis Life website, plus full episode videos on the Arthritis Life YouTube channel. If you have any ideas for content for future episodes, or you want to share your story on the podcast, please send me, Cheryl, an email at info@myarthritislife.net. I can't wait to hear from you, and thanks so much again for your time.